Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we have 8 games for you tonight on Wednesday, but we are taking a look at the Clippers. They're playing host to the Raptors in this video here. Also got another game video up for you with those Mavs and Pellies, as well as our player props that we're looking to stay hot with you guys. Scott had another good night last night. So continue to follow along, like and subscribe to that page. Also head to thelines.com. You can check out all the great written content we have about the NBA in full swing right now with plenty of player props up there each and every weekday as well. Also can check out that odds finder tool we have for you. It's a really great tool to make sure you can see all the odds available to you from all these U.S. sports books, giving you guys bets in the NBA this season. Nate, let's run through this slate real quick for everyone on Wednesday night and then talk Clips and Raps.
Yeah, we got Hawks -3 at Washington. That opened much bigger at -7.5. The other game we break down, we got Mavs in a pick'em at New Orleans. It's a back-to-back situation for Dallas, so gonna wait and make sure both Kairuka is playing, but then we do like over 233 if that's the case. Cavs are -1.5 at the Heat. We got Celtics -10 at home against the Blazers. Celtics have played 3 overtimes in the last 4 nights right now, so that could be spicy. We got the Suns still undefeated with Kevin Durant, and that spread has grown to -14 as they host the Thunder who are on a back-to-back. The Bulls are up to +9.5 at Denver. Denver has won 22 straight home games with Jokic active. And this game, the Raptors are only +2.5 now at the Clips. They opened at +5. Nobody is trusting the Russell Westbrook Clippers. That includes Josh, who would not bet on them with your money, he says. But we do have some good confidence here in the over, which has actually dropped a point as well to 228. Toronto is a team that does tend to go under a little bit. But, I mean, not recently. They've gone over in 3 straight road games. And they've actually gone over in 13 of their last 18 on the road with a 96 pace, which is certainly faster than the recent meetings with the Clips. It's hard to look at a game log involving the Clippers and really take much stock into it. If it's from last season or the season before, it's like, well, did they have any of these guys? But it isn't impressive to look at how the Raptors have been able to score on them with a 120 offensive rating. Scoring 111 despite the really slow pace, despite barely hitting any threes, 9 a game, despite 19 assists. They get to the line, and Siakam has been really successful. Like, the Clippers haven't had a really good matchup for him. I don't think Kawhi, even though he's sort of back, is still a great matchup for Siakam. I say sort of back. He's not the same defensive stopper he has been. And so you look at Siakam scoring 33.5 per game his last 2 against the Clips, 28 his last 5. That is with both those guys active for some of those, and it's a get-right matchup for him. I will highlight him in player props, I think, because his scoring prop is way down. And if he's getting it going, and this is going to turn into a bit more of an up-and-down game, I think. And again, we talk about the change of pace. Same thing we were looking at with the Mavs, that their pace has skyrocketed since adding Kyrie. Since adding Westbrook, the Clippers are 4th in pace at 103 possessions per game. They're scoring 125 a game. Their defense has been horrendous, though. And in the key areas for against Toronto, right? Dead last in turnover percentage and in opponents' points off turnovers, giving up 27 of those a game, which is the worst in the league by like 6 points per game. Fast break points, dead last in paint points. Toronto, you worry about them scoring, but I think that they should be able to get theirs here because Westbrook is just not helping them on the defensive end, and the rotations are messed up, or for whatever reason, they just haven't been able to stop anybody. But I think they've kind of figured out some things on offense in the last 2, which is to say, Russ, shoot less. 16% usage rate against Memphis means they finally got a win. PG goes off for 42 with a 38% usage rate. And those two guys, old friends from OKC, maybe did some internal discussions of like, look, I'm going to set you up. We need you to shoot more. Russ, you don't have to prove, to everybody that you can still score. Like, let's just win some freaking games. So they have a 130 offensive rating in their last 2 here. They are hitting 13 threes as a team. Their games have averaged 255, which is certainly a lot more than this. So, I mean, both teams giving up, our bottom four in assists allowed as well. I just think we're going to have enough of offensive efficiency here to get over 228. I mean, when you talk about the Kawhi-led Clips, that's been the case. Aside from some of their road games here in the Westbrook era, like at Golden State and that one weird home game against Minnesota, they've been a consistent over. I mean, granted, two of those are against the Kings, which have been ridiculous shootouts. But I do think Toronto, if they're able to score off turnovers and get out in the fast break and get Siakam going the way he needs to, I do think they'll score enough to help this go over.
Yeah, that's what this comes down to. I'm just looking at the Clippers, and I love that Russell Westbrook comes to a team and it just can't help but take on his identity. Like, he's the dude at the party who's just talking so loud, and you're like, yo, everybody can hear everything you're saying, but he can't help it. He's just so loud. And that's why they're now dead last in terms of opponents' points off turnovers. Because they're giving up the second most turnovers since Russell Westbrook got there. It's just helter-skelter ball. It's just run and gun, get it and go. There's never he's good at what makes Russell Westbrook good is not just his speed, it's his quickness. It's start and stop. And it's been a lot of just quick stop and then go. And they're still averaging, they're still in the top 5 in the NBA in terms of mid-range points, scoring, the fourth highest percentage from there. They're still doing things that's Clipper ball, but they're doing it at 103.3 pace as opposed to like 96, which they've been playing at for the past, basically since they got there. Since Kawhi and PG showed up in LA, they've been in the bottom 5 in pace. And now, it's just gone. It's just all different. It's 103.3. And it's what you said. The reason I like the over here is because that's how Toronto scores. Like that's the key stat to me. Toronto gets, all season they're in the top 3 in terms of points off of turnovers. We also know they like the scrappy second chance points, and they like the fast break points. And that's how they're going to score over and over again, and until Nick Nurse basically probably isn't there, or until their roster looks a lot different. But on the road, still getting a ton of those fast break points because I think they know that they need to get it and go. And that's why that's I think how they've had success too. When they win on the road, they have they get above 115, 116 in those situations. And I'm not saying they're going to win this game, but I would take them to cover 3 before I would take the Clippers to cover 3 in this situation, knowing that they just blew one against the Nuggets that they should have probably kept a bit better. But Joker just kind of took over, and that's a guy that no one on their team, God bless you, Jakob Poeltl, can really do anything about. Poeltl will probably be very helpful in this matchup because if they didn't have him, they wouldn't have anybody to match up with Zubac and even say what you want, Mason Plumlee as well. Like they wouldn't have, if you put Chris Boucher or Koloko or anyone on that front line, in the starting rotation, you have nobody for Mason Plumlee at that point who's been balling out, has a 20 rebound game at this point with the Clips. So I think you continue to feel good about points in this one, no matter what. Even if, Toronto has done decently at home, and I know they play pretty similarly at home, on the road, like you were saying, in terms of their defense, they give up a bunch more points. They do allow you to have at least be more efficient on the road than they are at home, and that's going to be something that I think if you're going to allow a team to be efficient, like the Clippers aren't necessarily going to be that. They're just going to be a volume team at this point. But if you're going to allow them to be efficient with that volume that they're going to play at and the speed, then I just think everything points towards over, to at least over 230 in this game. And we've got it down to 228 right now.
Yeah. I mean, you say they take on the identity of Westbrook. So you look at how the Lakers have done against the Raptors, and they've gone over in 4 of their last 5, including some really high totals the last 2. So that is definitely an indication that this matchup will be juked a little bit. I mean, Westbrook's his individual numbers aren't necessarily good in those last few matchups. 17 points per game, but 3.5 turnovers, which certainly helps the Raptors. And whatever he's doing defensively, getting lost, freelancing, not really being a good team defender. I do kind of like the Clips though, because Kawhi, I mean, you mentioned Poeltl and their ability to operate in the mid range between Kawhi and PG. Kawhi's averaging like 32 a game on 68% shooting in his last 2 against Poeltl / the Spurs, who he just wanted to murder. But he hasn't really had that revenge game against Toronto either yet. No. Maybe he comes out and delivers some daggers. And I think there's something to build on here for the Clips coming back to beat Memphis despite giving up some ridiculous efficiency. in that third quarter, gave up a 51-point third quarter, but then buckled down for the win. I think maybe they'll start to figure out some things with Westbrook. It's just a little unfair to be like, you threw him in there midseason, gave him the starting role at point guard, and oh yeah, they're losing. It's all his fault. It's like, well, it's got to be an adjustment period here, and let's see if they can adjust and start to win some games with him.
Yeah, no, like if we're going back to the loud guy at the party analogy, like you invited him, Paul George. So what did you expect to happen? But yeah, just back to the mid range too, like Toronto, bottom 5 in terms of allowing mid range field goal percentage and the amount of field goals that are scored on them there as well. So it's a good weakness point that that is going to be attacked by this Clippers team no matter what. So and also the lack of defense. Norm Powell is getting less minutes. Really good wing defender for them, 6'3" with like a 7-foot wingspan, and always been at least a solid defender who can also guard slightly bigger players. And without him, basically getting the minutes that he was getting on pace for being, in the conversation for 6th man of the year, and then that just got completely taken away from him. Terrence Mann gets pulled from the starting lineup. So it's definitely not Westbrook's fault, like you said, entirely at all. But it's just, this is what it is now for this team. And so that's why even 3 points for me is something I don't feel comfortable with. They weren't able to cover again. They almost lost to that Grizzlies team the other night and had to really come back all the way at the very end, down 10 in the fourth quarter. Had to come all the way back to win, but not cover. So anyway, that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. Check out the other game video and our player props up tonight. Until we see you next, happy betting.